if you could figure out who are those right, like teenage athletes, and now with NIL, you can do deals, and these brands are doing deals. I think that becomes a very interesting world. Welcome to Sponsorable, a podcast that brings together sports organizers and brand leaders to talk about the business of grassroots sports. I'm Garrett Shea, and I spent the past 20 years in the youth sports industry, building nationally televised sporting events and national corporate sponsorship programs. On today's episode, we've got Mitch Thompson, CEO of Pando Partner, and we're going to be talking about the future of sports sponsorship and how technology is being used to help national organizations better deliver their and manage their partnerships. All right. Hey, Mitch, thanks so much for joining us today. We got a lot to go over, so let's just dive right in. Mitch Thompson, CEO, founder, Pando Partner, great technology organization, fairly new to this space, launched it a few years ago, really focused on helping sponsorship organizations or sports organizations activate, fulfill, provide valuations, reporting to their sponsors. So really excited to talk with you about Pando Partner, as well as learn a little bit more about your career and how you launched Pando Partner.
Thanks for having me, Garrett. Excited to hear.
So let's start off. Maybe just give us a little background about your career and sponsorship and kind of some of the different brands that you've worked with and what you've done.
Yeah, for sure. So it's been, I guess, 13 years or so now, maybe 14, since I've gotten into the sponsorship space, and really spent the bulk of the first kind of 10 years or so working with brands. A little bit of property side work, but for the most part, I was consulting with brands like Budweiser, Toyota, Nestle, and a handful of others on entering into sponsorships, what they should spend on sponsorships, how they should measure sponsorships, and really got that kind of foundation of knowledge around the industry and how this whole industry operates from that brand side perspective before then transitioning to working a bit more with properties.
Yeah. So, a lot of our listeners are grassroots sports organizers, brands that are looking to enter the grassroots space. And I mean, you hit probably one of the key aspects that every sponsorship seller and sponsorship buyer wants to know. And that's what's the right price? What's the price and what should I be getting for that price? So maybe talk a little bit about some of those larger organizations and how you work with them, the Budweisers of the world, how you work with them on evaluating sponsorship, helping them from a pricing standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to it. I think basically to summarize the approach that typically brands take, it's asking whether or not this makes sense for our business and what are the outcomes it's going to drive. And that can be a complicated process depending on the type of company. So are we looking to drive awareness? Are we looking to drive consideration? Are we looking to actually sell products? Is it all of the above? So what are the outcomes and how can we predict those and forecast those types of bottom line or other types of outcomes? And then also simultaneously, what's a fair deal? So, you kind of want to know what's an appropriate price point for a given package. So you kind of use both of those pieces of information, and there's a lot of number crunching behind the scenes, depending on the size of the deal, depending on the size of the budget. You can do analysis until the cows come home, but it's really just kind of blending those two perspectives, I would say.
No, that's a great point. I mean, through my career, I've had the ability to build and sell media deals, pure sponsorship deals. I mean, you name it, I've probably built and sold it. And that was, and I think you stated it very well. And that is, at some point, it comes down to, just understanding all of the pieces of the deal, and is this a fair ask, if you would, fair value proposition And a part of that is knowing what else is out there. That's where I always look and say, hey, I want to know as many different properties. What are they selling? How are they selling it? Truly, what's the influence and value they can provide, and then have a chance to kind of have a chance to just analyze and see where the different prices and value props fall. So certainly, I think that breadth of understanding, all of the different options. And that's why, quite frankly, your consulting background, I think, is so valuable, because you've been with all of these different brands and groups. You understand what's out there, and then you can help to advise them. So,
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think when you're in a market, understanding the perspective of the buyer is always important if you're trying to sell something, right? So, I think that was a good foundation and start to my career. And then, since I'd say 2018, I've kind of started to work more and more with properties, and now we're very much heavily involved with properties at Pando Partners. So I've been able to take that foundation of brand side perspective, and then also learn more about what goes on behind the scenes when selling sponsorship and generating revenue as a rights holder or a property.
So let's talk about Pando Partner. Explain to our audience what is it, and how did you come to the decision that you were going to launch and run Pando Partner?
Yeah, so Pando Partner is a modern software platform for sponsorship management. And it's basically taking all of the work and the analytics that goes into sponsorship inception, selling, and then tracking and measuring. And it's kind of creating a modern platform that leverages technology, leverages AI. And basically, the goal for us is to make our clients' lives easier and to help them achieve great outcomes with sponsorship without necessarily needing a huge headcount or a consultant, or, all of the different kind of work that can go into sponsorship, trying to alleviate that work and that grunt work with a modern platform. So basically, right now we work with a lot of rights holders and properties, helping them to itemize their inventory, package their inventory, track their sales, and then track the fulfillment and do all the reporting on sponsorships. And, it just really takes the learning curve out of things for maybe organizations that don't have sponsorship expertise or in-house sponsorship specific people that can really understand all the jargon and all the workflows that I've gotten to know all throughout my career. So basically, our platform teaches those workflows and does them for you.
Yeah, no. So ultimately, when you talk with a sports property, rights holder, you're talking to them about your software, helping their staff manage, fulfill, track, report on sponsorships more effectively. Is that kind of summarize it?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So instead of all the spreadsheets and chaos and confusion and people not quite knowing where things stand with regards to that deal or with regards to that asset, it's all housed in a centralized place with easy reporting and easy updates and notifications at your fingertips.
Yeah. Because, so my sports marketing agency is, I know Mitch, but for those that are listening, is really focused on the sales side. So we create, build, and then sell the sponsorship on behalf of a lot of national sports organizations. But what I've seen is they really struggle with how to fulfill it, to your point, how to manage it, how to and I shouldn't say even, the most important piece is how to report on it, because like that to me and that's what a sponsor wants. They're like, man, because what happens is, right, on the front end, they're so excited for the partnership. I mean, they're like, yes, we're going to do this great partnership. We're going to do so many great things. But then as the sports organization is going, they're potentially forgetting to report back out. Hey, these are all the great things that we're doing. And that's where I look and say, Pando Partner, and a number of my clients use Pando Partner, so I know firsthand, they're able to report out to their partners and say, hey, these are all the things that we're doing. Check out this image, check out this email, check out this social post. and it's all right there, and so that they can track and follow along. And then, oh, by the way, at the end of the year, they have the ability to push out a report. And that's, I mean, and I don't have to tell you what is missing so often when it comes to actually delivering a partnership is that constant communication, that reporting at the end. And that's where I get excited, because it helps as a seller, it helps me renew the partnership, because I'm going into a renewal negotiation, discussion with some ammunition. Hey, here's the report. Here's what we or our client delivered for you, and they're aware of it, and then the negotiation or the renewal conversation is much easier.
Yeah, absolutely, and it helps. If you can get that reporting done more easily, more frequently, meet the client's needs, you can capitalize on the true value of what your organization has to offer sponsors, and they don't have to look at your organization as a risk as a sponsor, right? Because nowadays, like it or not, brands have a choice to deploy those dollars maybe towards digital media, where they can pull up a screen and have real-time updates on their spend and how it's performing. And, an ad on a website or another type of digital media asset, I think we all agree, isn't as powerful as some of these engagements and interactions that brands can have through sponsorship. But the one thing they've got right for sure is it's measurable and it's kind of turnkey from a buyer's standpoint. So closing that gap is kind of what we're trying to do, so that the true value of our clients' offerings to brands can shine without having this asterisk of, you can invest in us, and whether or not you get the type of reporting and servicing that meets your needs, well, that's TBD, right? And we're trying to take away that kind of hesitancy and that risk by nailing with technology all of those things that you just talked about.
Yeah. Because, to your point, every sports organizer, property holder, they want happy partners. The last thing you want to deal with is a partner to come and say, hey guys, I didn't get what I was sold. And I do find a lot of the times it's lack of communication, and especially like it should be ongoing communication. Hey, here's this asset and we just delivered it. Here's the email report and all of the data behind that, the email that was sent out. And if those things don't get communicated, at least along the way, at the end of the year, it's too late, right? So like that ongoing communication is so critical. And that's where I get excited about your technology and what you've built, that allows the sports organizer and the property holder to actually have that ongoing reporting back to the partners. And they don't have to, they don't have to sit there and, to your point, like add it all into a spreadsheet. Where is that link? It's all, very easily accessed by the partner. And that's what ultimately, in my opinion, leads to happy partnerships, is that strong communication, that reporting, that just quite frankly, it does not happen, unfortunately, in some partnerships.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're still early in our journey, but the goal for us is to change habits, change expectations and norms. Like brands can't tell their boss or their board to wait till the end of the sports season. Sometimes they've got a fiscal year end that's very different than your timing as a property. So the frequency of reporting and those communications, to your point, I think is something that the whole kind of sponsorship world needs to look at and say, are we doing this because it's what our buyers want in terms of waiting till the end of the year for that recap? Or are we doing it because it's such a burden and such a cumbersome process and we don't have the human resources? And I think more often than not, it's the latter. And, therefore, let's look at this beautiful thing called technology nowadays in 2025 and see if we can solve that problem and create better outcomes for our partners.
Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit about technology and at least in my, from my perspective, and I started my career 20 plus years ago. It's always been in grassroots sports events and marketing. But 20 years ago, you couldn't, like, we were producing and running nationally televised sporting events. They happened to be high school aged athletes and programs. So it hit the demo that a lot of these brands were looking to reach and hit. But now in today's day and age, technology's allowed brands to reach millions of families on, community ball fields across the country, because these sports organizers and tech platforms can aggregate, youth sports information, youth sports, marketing opportunities. I mean, now there's, live streaming networks for the high school scholastic world. Right. There's so many, technology has come into youth sports and made a huge impact. Where do you see sports tech going? I know you're, AI, we talked a little bit about that, in some of your talking points, but maybe talk to us a little bit of where you see your technology, as well as just technology in general, going as it relates to sponsorship sports.
Yeah, I think that aggregation point to me is really important. I think there are a lot of deals that get done with the biggest pro sports teams and leagues. Yes, because they have huge followings and the passion is there and they've got a lot going for them. But it's also more convenient to sign one contract and be serviced by a huge team as a brand, right? So if technology can close that gap, which is what we're talking about here, which means, if you sell in a deal to a national governing body, but it's deployed across 100 different regional organizations across the country, that is going to, if you add up the numbers, be very powerful for the brand if executed well. And if executed well and if reported on well, you can prove that value prop. And then, the challenge becomes, okay, how can we execute well? How can we report on that well? And the use of consistent platforms, the automation of reporting that can be done nowadays through, email tools, through website tracking, through broadcast analytics, and the kind of aggregation of that data into a turnkey place for the buyer to view, and for the property side staff to work with. Just anything that makes that corralling of information easier, and the coordination of different people involved in the process. That's the beauty of what I think technology can do to solve that problem, and take the fragmentation of youth sports and grassroots sports and kind of make it, less of a negative and more of a positive. It's regional disbursement. It's access to audiences and demographics that maybe are untapped from a brand standpoint. So yeah, that's kind of the summary of how we see it. We see a huge opportunity there with that kind of like aggregation angle when it comes to the leveraging technology.
Yeah. So if you feel comfortable, maybe share with us a couple of the types of sports organizations that you're working with, that are current clients for Pando Partner.
Yeah, we work very closely with a couple of sports teams and leagues in Canada, the Canadian Football League, Canadian Premier League, Canadian Hockey League as an example, and then a bunch of grassroots organizations, so state soccer associations, whether it's New Jersey Youth Soccer or Tennessee State Soccer Association, and beyond. So those are a few examples. There's plenty more. And it's been a couple of years, so far, and we're just kind of ramping up and getting started. But so far, everyone appreciates how we've helped them to get their house in order when it comes to the scattered reality of how sponsorships are executed and tracked at those organizations.
So, Mitch, obviously the buzzword in probably all industries right now is AI. Talk a little bit about what Pando Partner currently is doing with AI, and then also where do you see AI going in this, in your technology, sponsorship, fulfillment management segment?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've been at it for about a year trying to kind of incorporate AI, and really we've made some progress when it comes to digesting client documents is one example. So once clients get set up with our platform, we're taking their existing status quo and we're transforming it into, this modern software experience. And there is data that needs to be migrated. So scanning through contracts and kind of getting that data structure where it needs to be is one way that we use AI. Another example is to generate fulfillment reports. So there's a lot of judgment, that goes into creating good fulfillment reports, as an example, in terms of how you want the content to be laid out, how you want it to be summarized. There's things that are in the heads of people who work in this industry that are tough to articulate into firm rules. And with LLMs, you can kind of ask AI to kind of use their judgment and then give you a good outcome there. So those are a couple examples, but there's a lot more, to come. We aren't looking to, as a company, necessarily change the game when it comes to measurement. There's a lot of great companies already doing that. For us, it's about connecting with those companies and getting the data at the fingertips of our users through our platform. So we're not necessarily the ones analyzing logo placement exposure, for example, but that data feeding into our platform is something we're interested in. So I think that's a huge frontier that's only going to get better and better, is the grunt work that goes into measurement in terms of AI helping there, but also, those handoffs and internal communications and all the back and forths, like that's a huge opportunity, I think, for us to solve those problems as an industry using AI.
Yeah. Your comment about logo placement valuation kind of struck a memory for me. I still remember I used to run the U.S. Army All-American Bowl on NBC. And one year I got the idea, hey, I'm going to create this eye black that's going to have the U.S. Army logo on it. And so we did it. And I think we spent, like $200 to get the logo placed on it. Once we had one of these external groups come back and evaluate like that media value, it was like $120,000 of media value. So it is fantastic, one, to work with some of these external groups because they do a great job on media valuation. But then two, just capture all of those different pieces, right? Like you think about one piece, $120,000 of media value for a logo on iBlack. All of the different kind of media valuation. And we had other sponsors. So having the chance to as a property holder to know, okay, what's PlayStation's valuation? At the time it was Reebok. What's Reebok's valuation? What's the U.S. Army's valuation? Consolidate that all into kind of one system so that we could pull it up. I mean, that type of, and then share it with the respective clients. That's invaluable right there. Kind of shifting to more of your holistic experience, going kind of putting your consulting hat on. I always like to talk with sponsorship experts about, what are some assets that, if you were building a sponsorship, what are some of your favorite assets to put into to a sponsorship, program or package?
Yeah, I'm probably biased because I'm a measurement data guy, right? So for me, I love when there's a code or a click through that can really be tracked, and then you can isolate the effectiveness of a given tactic or asset. So that's not necessarily because it's maybe the sexiest asset on its own, but to me, being able to prove that something delivered certain outcomes is really important. So I'm biased to, anytime there's like a promo code or a click through that can be tracked, I would say. But otherwise, I mean, I love the way activations and experiential interactions have taken on this additional benefit of content that can then be distributed post experience, right? So you can engage with 100 or 500 families, in an intimate setting, and that could be a huge win for you as a brand at a grassroots event. And you can, follow up with those leads and get business outcomes from those relationships, or, change those interaction recipients, the people's maybe perception of your brand that leads to business for your brand. But then post-event, if you're capturing that content, you can also use it in so many ways across your marketing. So I've really enjoyed seeing that happen over the last kind of 5-10 years, that additional benefit of experiential and activation in the form of content production.
Agreed. And somebody who jumps to mind for me is like I believe it's Smack and Seeds, where they've done a great job. Where they'll go out and they'll basically they'll grab a minor league baseball player and they'll give them a new flavor of their sunflower seeds, and then they'll capture on social media, or they'll capture his experience with their product. And so it comes across so authentically. And to your point, that might just be one, it's just a ball field somewhere and it's one guy, but they're broadcasting it over the social channels, and you see this very authentic reaction. And then you're like, wow, like that, I kind of want to try that, that flavor. And that to me is they do really good job with it. Probably one of the more innovative ways, only because that the whole kind of try and buy strategy, cans in hands, like trying to just get product out there so people can try it. And then they figured out a way to really scale that using media, which I thought was, really smart.
Yeah, it helps brands, I'm sure, justify the spend. Before content creation became so affordable, you'd have to justify that one interaction in terms of what it takes to then go to that local ball field and make that kind of like experiential activation happen. And now you can justify it from multiple angles.
Yeah. I also look at kind of, some sports properties, organizations, and I kind of target the ability for them to create influencer programs. Do you have any experience building or consulting on influencer programs?
Yeah. Definitely when I was working with brands, we would sign athletes as part of campaigns and initiatives. I haven't been in that world since the emergence of these new platforms that have really, or NIL even, that have really kind of like changed the size of that market. But I think, with social media, it's very clear that personalities are much more powerful, I think, as a vehicle for brands to deploy their like promotional or sponsorship dollars, right?
Yeah. And that kind of strikes a thought in my head as I think about the NIL world, right? And I think about, because what's happening, and we've helped some athletes through my agency with NIL kind of brand deals, but what strikes me is that, and maybe your service or Pando partner, works with brands, but one of the biggest challenge, especially when you're dealing with, let's say, a couple hundred athletes, is corralling them and at some point aggregating what they're doing for a brand. And very, very rarely, right, does a brand doesn't, a brand might be going to a bunch of different agents, right, and trying to figure out their NIL kind of deal, or deals rather, their portfolio. But I would think that your technology would be very valuable for a brand, especially in the world of NIL, to utilize. Do you have any brands that currently you're working with, or is that something that you're looking to do?
Yeah, that's kind of on the horizon for us. We're kind of mapping out that next product extension that will be brand focused, but absolutely. I think to your point, it comes down to, so being topical in today's world and being relevant means you've got to be speedy and you've got to be agile. And I think, if you remember back in the day, you used to map out a social content calendar ahead of time for the month fully, and it was fully baked and it had all the approvals. And, you do have to obviously plan some content, but nowadays you have to be agile and reactive, and you can't be agile and reactive without technology and tools helping you corral, to your point, and coordinate and distribute, marching orders, for lack of a better term, or content. So in order to meet that kind of like modern reality and modern standard of what consumers need, which is topical and relevant content for them, you've got to have the infrastructure behind the scenes to make that happen.
Yeah, no. And I look at, and you brought up some of the state soccer associations as clients for Pando Partner, and I too work with a number of state soccer associations. And one of the I think very interesting pieces as I look on the horizon of where is sponsorship going, where's influencer marketing going, because I've seen it with brands to date, and that is they have figured out that the 14-year-old athlete is more influential on the 12 and under demo that they're trying to reach than maybe the 25-year-old professional athlete. And that to me is like,
that's really cool,
right? Like if you could figure out who are those right, like teenage athletes, and now with NIL, you can do deals, and these brands are doing deals. I think that becomes a very interesting world for grassroots sports marketing groups that do truly understand, hey, these are the athletes that you should be, teaming up with brand X, or these are even, we see it too in club sports world, where a brand like a big sneaker brand might come and say, hey, listen, I want to seed product to the right club teams. But, in a sport like, let's say, flag football, that is a newer sport, a lot, like nobody knows who are the right club flag football teams. And so, having the ability to identify those and then at some point, team them up with brands, I think is definitely an interesting, interesting angle to look at as we get into the, as we look what's next for grassroots sports marketers. So.
Yeah. And how can you break through maybe as a brand who's new to a category where an incumbent's already got like some of the bigger names locked up with exclusive deals, whether those are athletes or organizations, where's the kind of like arbitrage opportunity to hit that next home run that people maybe don't realize is coming. So that's the fun part, I think, is assessing, where the potential is to drive results for your brand. Where's the potential to drive results for your brand in a way that's cost effective? And that should be the fun part. And the admin work of getting the deal done and measuring it, shouldn't be where we spend the bulk of our hours, right? So absolutely, I think that's a cool angle to think of. Marketing's always evolving. Sometimes it drives you crazy because you can't just set it and forget it in terms of your knowledge. You got to always be learning, and it's moving fast, but that's the fun part as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, once again, Mitch Thompson, thanks for joining us today on Sponsorable. We had a great time talking with you about your experience as a consultant for some of the top brands, but then also your new technology platform that you launched, Pando Partner. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Garrett. Appreciate you inviting me.
All right.